All right, if you're even thinking about buying a new car in India in the next few years, you're in the right place. We're going to cut right through the noise and tackle what's become a huge and honestly pretty confusing decision for just about everyone.
So let's just jump right in. The massive question on everyone's mind. EV, petrol, or diesel? Looking at all the latest data, there's just no single right answer for everybody. It all boils down to one thing, really: your life and your driving habits.
Okay, let's start with the city slickers. If you're doing a lot of city driving, we're talking more than 12,000 kilometers a year, and you have a dedicated spot to plug in your car overnight, then honestly, an EV should be at the very top of your list. The savings in the long run, they're just massive. You really can't ignore them. But what if that's not you, right? What if you don't drive a whole lot, or maybe you live in an apartment building and dedicated parking is just a dream? Well, in that case, a good old petrol car is still probably your smartest bet. It's just a simple calculation. That higher price tag on an EV, it just doesn't make financial sense if you're not driving enough.
And what about the highway warriors? The folks who are constantly on long drives? Well, diesel still has a pulse, but wow, it's become a really niche choice. It only adds up if you're doing a ton of highway kilometers and this is a big and, you're okay with the risks from changing government rules. Okay, so that's the quick and dirty summary. Now, let's dig into the why behind all this, and we'll start with the one thing we all care about: the cost.
Yeah, this is where the differences really pop. We're not just talking about the showroom price. We have to look at the real cost of driving your car over several years. Just look at these numbers. This is the cost per kilometer, and it's just staggering. For every single kilometer you drive, a petrol car is setting you back about 6.5 rupees. Diesel's a bit better, at 4.5. But an EV, when you charge it at home, it's barely over 1 rupee. That's not just a small difference, that is an absolute game changer. And here's where those tiny per kilometer savings just blow up into something huge. Let's say you drive a pretty standard 15,000 kilometers a year. Over 7 years, an EV will save you, get this, 5.6 lakh rupees just on fuel compared to a petrol car. I mean, that's enough to buy another small car. It's incredible when you see it laid out like that.
So, the big question is always, when does the EV pay for itself, right? Well, the magic number seems to be around 75,000 kilometers. If you're that person driving 15,000 kilometers a year, you hit your break-even point in just 5 years. And every single kilometer you drive after that, that's pure savings in your pocket. But hey, running a car isn't just about the fuel, is it?
Now, there is a bit of a trade-off here. On one hand, maintaining an EV is way cheaper. I mean, think about it. No oil changes, way fewer moving parts to break. But on the other hand, insurance is more expensive for now, mostly because the batteries are so costly to replace. So you save on service for sure, but it's a bit of a give and take. Okay, so we've talked money. Let's talk about the practical stuff, how these cars actually live with us day to day.
Because let's be real, the numbers can look great on paper, but the real test is out there on the road. Can an EV really handle Indian conditions, our monsoons, our questionable roads, and our love for a good long road trip?
And this is probably the biggest fear everyone has, right? Range anxiety, the nightmare of your car dying in the middle of a highway. But you know what? The situation on the ground is changing, and it's changing fast.
I mean, just look at the raw numbers. The charging network is absolutely exploding. We're on track to have over 29,000 public chargers pretty soon. We're talking major highways, more than 600 cities. That weekend trip to the hills, it's not a crazy dream for EV owners anymore. It's actually becoming pretty normal, which is something you couldn't have said even 2 years back.
And what about our very unique Indian conditions? Let's talk monsoons. People worry about water and electricity, but EV battery packs are completely sealed. So driving through a waterlogged street, the risk is basically the same as it is in any other car. Now for the other big one, bad roads and those monster speed bumps. The answer here is simple: ground clearance. Just make sure you pick an SUV-type EV with more than 180 millimeters of clearance and you'll sail right over them.
All right, buying a car isn't like buying a phone. It's a big, long-term decision. So we have to look at the future. Where are the government's rules going? And what's the real impact on the environment?
You don't need a crystal ball to see where the government is placing its bets. It is crystal clear. EVs get a huge leg up with just 5% GST, and a lot of states are waiving the road tax completely. Compare that to petrol and diesel, you're paying 28% GST plus all sorts of other taxes. And for diesel owners, the future looks risky. There's serious talk about banning older diesel cars in big cities. That's a huge risk to take on.
Okay, but what about the big picture, the environment? Well, even when you account for how we generate electricity in India today, studies are clear. EVs have a much lower carbon footprint over their whole life. But maybe the most important thing, especially for those of us living in cities, is this. Zero pollution comes out of the tailpipe. That's a massive, massive win for the air that we all breathe.
All right, we've gone through a ton of information. So let's boil it all down into a super simple checklist that you can use to make your own decision.
It's just 4 simple questions you need to ask yourself. Step 1, do you have a place to charge? If the answer is no, honestly, just stick with petrol for now. Step 2, how much do you drive in a year? If it's less than 10,000 kilometers, petrol's probably smarter. More than 15,000? You really need to look at an EV. Step 3, where do you drive? Mostly city traffic? EV is a no-brainer. Mostly long highway runs? That's where diesel or a long-range EV comes into play. And finally, step 4, how long are you going to keep the car? If you're the type to sell it in a few years, petrol is safer. But if you're in it for the long haul, say more than 5 years, the EV savings will really pay off. Just be honest with yourself on these 4 points, and the right choice for you will become pretty obvious.
So there you have it. You've got the facts, you see the pros and cons, the decision is now in your hands. So which future are you going to drive? Thanks so much for tuning into this explainer.